So as usual, the meta breakdown is going to go over the stats of the meta and figure out what would be best for you guys in order to climb most efficiently, right? I'm going to try to give you guys as much information as I can and either A, give you specific counters, or B, give you enough information to where you can figure out how to counter the meta yourself. I'm going to go over Vicious Syndicate statistics and Hearthstone replay statistics, and I'm going to try to do this weekly, so stay tuned. So the first thing is just looking at all ranks. Paladin is the most played, followed by Mage. Warlock, we'll get into this into a second. Hunter, and then Warrior, and then after that, it's kind of irrelevant. At Diamond 1 to Diamond 4, about 27% of the meta is Paladin of some sort, and I think that that's pretty accurate, along with Face Hunter. And this is mostly true and will continue to be true, at least for like the next week, because at the start of every season, aggro decks tend to perform the best or get played the most because people want to climb ranks as quickly as possible, even if the deck might not be as good for them personally. So I actually expect these play rates of Hunter and Paladin to actually increase by a couple of %. And decks like Warrior and Priest and Demon Hunter and all that will probably decrease a little bit. That's just my personal prediction. Just because these are trends that happen at the beginning of every season. But again, Paladin is being played a ton. In Legend, it's still being played a ton. And in Top 1K Legend, however, Mage eclipses it. Which just goes to show you how powerful Spell Mage is. And when I complain about it on stream, about how uninteractive and broken it is, and how much damage it can do out of nowhere without any like way of stopping it, I'm not just saying this. It's broken, especially considering it counters Control Warlock and it's getting played less because of how powerful Spell Mage is. So let's talk about Warlock real quick. Warlock is a bad class. However, Control Warlock across all ranks is the most played deck in the game, which doesn't make sense to me. Yes, it does do well against decks like Priest and Mirror matches and some slower Control matchups, but as you can see, most of the decks in the meta right now are very fast. Like, the most played Control matchup is Control Priest, and that's only 6% of the meta. Warlock is only able to beat Priest consistently. Other than that, it loses to most of the matchups because of how much damage they can output, and Spell Mage has no minions you can remove or heal off of, so Warlock kind of just dies, right? So, my recommendation is don't play Warlock, and you'll be fine. In fact, since Warlock is so bad, I'd say that Priest is probably going to be a good deck because people are going to be discouraged from playing Warlock because it's losing to everything else, whereas Priest is probably the best control deck out there because it actually does do well into most of the other matchups. And as you go up the ranks, you can see the Control Warlock play rate drop a little bit. Obviously, D1 to D4, it's still high, but in Legend, it drops, and then in 1K Legend, it drops more. So let's talk about the most important classes, in my opinion, being Paladin, Mage, Hunter, and Warrior. These are the classes that you are going to play against the most. And these are the classes that if you're going to design a deck or want to counter the meta, these are the decks you want to focus on because Control Warlock is already so weak. And if you're playing a Control deck into Control Warlock, you're already going to lose because they can burn your cards and have Jiraxis and all that. So don't even consider Control Warlock. It's such a polarizing matchup that you either hard stomp it or you get destroyed. And it's not worth it to like try to play around. So that gives you with the 4 classes I just mentioned, and the deck that counters these decks the best is actually Rush Warrior, from what I have tested and played. I've played hundreds of games, obviously, both last season, and I've played dozens of games this season, but it's only day 2, so don't judge me for not having a huge sample size yet. But for the most part, I think Rush Warrior does well into pretty much all of these matchups. You have ways of dealing with the board and controlling the board to stop Paladin, and you can gain armor and put pressure on the board to stop a Spell Mage from bursting you and also putting enough pressure to stop them. And for the same reason you beat Paladin, you beat Hunter. I think Hunter is probably the worst of the matchups though because they have burst damage from hand and minions, and Warrior has a good time dealing with one or the other, but is a little bit worse at dealing with both because Warrior just has more armor, or less armor gain than it's ever had. But I'd say Rush Warrior is probably the best deck to counter the meta with. And then as you go down the list, obviously you don't see that much more play rate. I would say Secret Rogue and Miracle Rogue, I'd consider them basically the same deck. They have the same idea, just one has 4 secrets, one of them doesn't. So I'd consider them the same. And I actually think Rogue should be played a little bit more. I think that it has a lot of potential. It's just hard to play, which is why people play it less. But as you go up the ranks, as you can see, it's being played a ton. which promotes the idea that it really is dependent on the ability of the player, right? And at all ranks, or D1 to D4, when people don't know how to play it very well, it's played less, but as people get better and play it more, it rises in the play rate a lot. And as you can see, at every single one of these categories, Warrior and Rush Warrior is doing pretty solidly, and obviously Mage and Paladin. So as we go down the list, here's a visual representation of how the meta has shifted, and despite the fact that Paladin looks like it's being played way more than most other things at all ranks, or at least at Diamond 1 to Diamond 4, at all ranks, it actually looks pretty okay. And when compared to where Mage was at its peak, this meta is a lot more balanced than it has been, which is good. I like that. I like that fact, right? Even though it doesn't feel as fun as other metas, because, like I said, some of the decks in the game right now are just way too fast, not interactive, or just straight bad, but honestly just annoying. Even though those decks are being played a lot, there is a pretty wide variety. Every deck except Shaman has a couple of playable decks that are decent, and as you go up the ranks, the meta will shift as well, because it just shows that some of these decks are very skill dependent. So from a health standpoint, I think the meta is very healthy right now, and you have the opportunity to play a number of things with moderate success. Some things will give you more, but it's up to you. Then when you go down here, obviously Rush Warrior beats most things. Like I said, I think Rush Warrior is one of the best decks in the game. You have Secret, obviously all the Paladin decks have like all green, right? But again, Paladin's only red is Rush Warrior. Rush Warrior does well into basically everything except Control Priest, which makes sense because they can outvalue you and can kill big minions, and Clown Druid, which not many people play. Other than that, it's got a good matchup into everything, and has a good matchup into the most powerful classes in the game. Same with Face Hunter, and same with Mage. It is slightly, if not significantly, favored into all of the best decks in the game, which is why I would say Rush Warrior is the deck for you. And then if you go here to the meta score, Aggro Paladin, Secret Mage, and Spell Mage and Rush Warrior are just a big gap above the rest, a big jump above the rest. But if you go to just all Legend, it becomes a little bit more obvious that there are less skilled decks being played, like Face Hunter and stuff like that. And then at this point, from Diamond 1 to Diamond 4, I don't know. Diamond 1 to Diamond 4 is crazy. It's just all Paladins right now. But yeah, I like looking at just top 1k Legend and Legend in general to see the general power level of decks, because it makes me realize, like, if I played at the level of these two ranks, they would probably be about this good, whereas Diamond 1 to Diamond 4 isn't as representative. Like, if it was, Spell Mage would be a bad deck, when it really isn't. Like, it's a top performer in Legend and the best deck in Legend top 1k, so keep that in mind. Those are the decks that are being played the most. I would say, in terms of power level, I would say Rogue and, like, Miracle or Secret Rogue, I think has a lot of potential if you want to take the time to learn it. Rush Warrior is the best deck overall. Control Priest counters a decent number of things in the meta, except for unless you get, like, really rushed down by, like, a Spell Mage, because they get, you know, 2 Incanter slows. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do. And the deck I would say you shouldn't play is Warlock. I think that one is the overhyped deck. And then when you go here and you go to the popularity, it shows something very similar, except it says Face Hunter is the most played deck at all ranks, which I could see being believable as well. And it's good to cross-reference these statistics, because sometimes one might be wrong, or the other one might be might not be telling the whole story. So just know, Face Hunter, Control, or actually this isn't class by class, it's specific deck, which kind of makes sense because these percentages are a little bit closer together. But yeah, Face Hunter is probably the most played individual deck. But as you can see, the shift has happened. If you remember from the last episode, Face Hunter, or 2 episodes ago, it used to be 25% Face Hunter. Last episode it was 21%, and now it's 18, and 21.5% are in the Secret Paladin category. And I was telling you before that this was probably going to happen in the last episode, and the Control Warlock has gone down slightly, but not too much. And I would say the other biggest sleeper deck right now that's just insane that nobody's playing is Token Druid. Token Druid has a less than 3% play rate, But if you look at the tier list and its performance in even Legend, it is the 7th best deck in the game. People don't really expect it coming, and if you mulligan correctly and get a really good early game board, it can beat basically anything in the game. Diamond 1 to Diamond 4, it's still 7th. Top 1000 Legend, it is the 5th highest performing deck in the highest level of play, and I would recommend playing that deck as well. So overall, hopefully these statistics help you understand what's going on at all of the stages of the ladder. I hope that you guys learned something from this. If you guys want decks, just a general TLDR, Secret Paladin or any Paladin deck in general, Spell Mage, Face Hunter, and Rush Warrior are all solid decks. I personally think Rush Warrior is the strongest deck in the game right now, but Spell Mage has definitely started to see more play. Sleeper decks that I think aren't being played enough are Secret/Miracle Rogue and Gibberling Druid. And yeah, that's basically it. Also, Demon Hunter, I think OTK Demon Hunter's sleeper OP, but that's a lot more difficult. And then Control Priest kind of counters these decks, but is a little bit harder to play. So that's basically the rundown of what I would do. I would stay away from Warlock, away from Shaman, away from most priest decks that aren't Gibberling. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed.